All right, everybody, away we go. It is Friday, September 1st of 2017. This is the TRC sales training call that I'm excited to do with everybody. And boy, we've had a lot of good conversations in the mastermind recently about prioritizing and organizing. But I think none more important than making sure that we understand the context of a sales moment. And so whether that means, because that came up yesterday, prospecting. That's something that this industry knows as a term very well, or thinks that it knows very well. And I want to emphasize that prospecting can be a very confusing term. For me, the founder of the Realty Classroom, I was lost. And I had to think about database segmentation, because how you speak to somebody in a real estate context matters. In other words, there's no such thing really as a universal callback script. I get it. I get the concept. I was trained on one, but that can be a dangerous deal when you're thinking about especially inside sales. Now, there are universal things that happen when you're talking to a seller or a buyer on the phone, or when you're talking to them face to face in a presentation. I get it. Everything is, right there, and it's universal. But everybody's context, the human moment, in other words, what's most important to them matters in that moment. And you want to be paying attention to that so you understand that you're being contextually correct. In other words, is it something that's an expired listing? Is somebody in a probate situation where somebody just died? Are you calling back an internet lead where there was maybe even a very light, tacit, whimsical inquiry about value? What is it that you're talking to somebody about? How do they start? And I've said this before, but I want to make a big deal of it to start the call here. What is the genesis of that call? Genesis meaning birth. It's the birthplace of that context. How did you get there? And a lot of you, I think, forget that. And that's where you lose your humanity. See, most people, now this is a fine balance. I'm going to go to one scale, or one end of the scale, where we have structure. And we really know exactly what we're going to say and when we're going to say it. And that's scripting. But I will tell you, unless you are a professional actor or actress, memorization and then giving it back to the audience as if it is 100% off the top of your head, and you can sound like you're not scripted, don't do it. Just don't do it, because you're going to sound that way. And on the other end of the phone or face to face, all of a sudden the humanity is lost and people feel that something's wrong, that there's a less than authentic moment happening. So I think that's the reason I like to bring it up regularly, especially at the beginning of a sales training call, is let's just make sure that we are indeed authentic first. And the way that you do that is you listen or observe. So as I was training David on our team, who's new and in the Philippines, it's important to show him specifically context. How do we arrive at that moment, okay? So keep that in mind as you ask me for guidance here today. Let's keep in mind what it is specifically that you're really trying to understand about context and how that changes, all right? I'm going to open up the microphones, and remember, *6 mutes your mic, *7 unmutes it. So we want to make sure we get her going there, okay? So let's see here. Sorry about that. I'm dealing with a lot of information here today, not the least of which is trying to broadcast on Google Hangouts for the first time in a long time. So I forgot my technical skill set there. All right, so let's get it rolling. I'm going to open up the microphones, and I need somebody to come play the game with me. Okay, we good? Two ways? Check, check. Who's in here?
Check, check.
All right, thank you. All right, Patrick, jump in the hot seat with me. Oh, hi, buddy. Hi, David.
Check, check.
All right, here we go. So, Patrick, why don't you run with this a little bit? Why don't you talk to me a little bit about what you would like to start with? And we've done a lot of inside sales work that's led to a shorter call on outside sales. So if you want to go to outside sales or whatever you want to do, let me know. But I'm going to have you kick it off with me. Take me in a direction here.
Sure. Well, I like the shorter call idea. I have an OSA in the office named Jonathan Leon, who has been making expired calls. And his expired call is a little bit different than Paul's expired call. I think a lot of you guys have heard Paul do his expired call.
Right.
And Paul, is really, really good at, quickly explaining all the benefits of working with Paul.
Right.
And it's really, it's a skill that he's, I think, developed over a long time. He's really, really good at it. And to add replicate that is crazy. I mean, it's not crazy. You could do it, but it's going to take such a long time. So what our guy Jonathan is doing is he's having a much more bare bones, straight to the point kind of phone call where he kind of just says, "Hey, Danny, this is Jonathan Leon with Cantu Group Real Estate. I'm just giving you a quick call because I noticed that your home didn't sell. Just wanted to call and check and see if you are still considering selling."
Mm-hmm.
And then stopping and just, what do they say back? And then
Right.
just have a conversation.
Right.
And then you can add those plus-ups like, well, our average days on market are just 10 days. We've been selling homes on an average of 108% of the asking price. You can add those in throughout your conversation.
Sure.
But really, all he's saying is, hey, this is who I am. This is where I'm from. I noticed that this didn't work out for you. Are you going to try to sell it again?
Yeah.
Yes, no.
Okay, and good. And
I think that's a good approach for newer people.
Sure. What's the reaction? Is he feeling? And first of all, let's go back to, because you're right. I'm going to agree with you. I think it's insane to try to teach somebody who's newer at this to be like that person who's already really good at it. I think that's the definition of insanity for sure, because to listen to Paul make phone calls, a guy that's been around this business a long time and who has specialized in making those phone calls, that's just enough to really make you depressed, right? When you go listen to yourself. And David, who's in the Philippines for us, I think one of the things that I've made very clear to him early on is that you cannot make a mistake with me. You need to just fall forward with this and see what happens and find your natural voice. And that's why I started the call off that way. Because if I start to train him as to what I think he should sound like, yikes, now you're trying to mimic me. But what David's done a good job of also is listening in on the training calls and picking up bites. And he just sent me a call that we'll play because we played some of David's tougher ones. And then he had a good call today about somebody using our website. And, it's enough to break the ice. So I think you're right, Patrick. I think if you're trying to get somebody to copy what Paul does and how he does it, oh boy, that's just enough to depress somebody. Is Jonathan on the call, by the way, by any chance?
I don't know. He's in the office, but he's really good about being on these calls. I'd be surprised if he was.
Yeah. Well, he might roll in here afterwards too. So I think I think look, either way, I just wanted to hear his thoughts on that, because I think that's exactly right. And I think you make a bigger point, and I wouldn't pull the punch as you did a little bit. I do think it's crazy, and I think it's wrong. I'll go even further. I'll make an absolute statement. I think it's just flat out wrong to try to teach somebody to be somebody else, especially an expert. You can learn from them, but you have to make it your own. And so let's go to that, how to do that. Go back and say what you said before. How did he make it his own? First, you know what? I need a better context than that. I would like you to go back even further. What do you think it is that Paul really does that's extra, that sells Paul, that you felt was not duplicatable, first of all?
Well, yeah, I know Paul is on the call. I don't know if Paul is calling to jump in and just go through what you actually say on an expired call, but he talks about his experience, how long he's been in the business. He owns his own shop.
Right.
Last year I sold this many homes, and here's my average days on market, and here's my here's how much over the asking price we're selling for on average. And he's just able to go through it all concisely and clearly and quickly.
Right.
So he really does get all of that information. Like, here's who I am. Here's how long I've been in the business. Here's what good a job I do. And he's able to get all of that out there.
Right.
Almost before the person on the other line has an opportunity to say anything or have a rebuttal.
Right.
So they have all this information. Okay, I'm a great real estate agent. I've been doing this for 17 years. I can get your house sold. I do this all the time. So it's real concise. It's real clear, and it gets right in the person's face, and then it's kind of their time to respond, and they've got all this information already. So Jonathan, on the other hand, our new OSA who just started into the business. God, I don't think maybe in September. So maybe it's a year, if at best, maybe it's less than that. And he's he's more of a soft-spoken, very relaxing kind of guy. And so he's just making his phone calls, saying, "Hi, this is Jonathan with Cantu Group Real Estate. Just calling because I noticed your house did not sell recently, and I was just calling up to see if you're considering selling in the next 1 to 3 or 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's finding, I actually asked him the same question you asked me, Danny. What kind of reactions are you getting?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I actually get a lot of really great reactions. People just open up and they tell me their answer. Yes, I am considering getting it back on the market eventually. And then he, builds out his pipeline a little bit. People hang up on him. It's the same kind of, I think he gets, kind of what you would expect from just calling expireds and asking them if they want to sell again.
Yeah, so it's the same as every.
He gets to,
it's the same as everybody.
That would be necessary to do what Paul's doing.
Yeah, so the same as everybody, other than the fact that he feels that he's in a better place, right? He feels better about these.
Well, plus he's also making the calls.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think people get real scared of those expired calls because it's a little bit more, there's more pushback. And I think a lot of us over the years, myself for sure included, have been providing people with expired scripts that do look a little bit more complex.
Right.
And maybe that's hindering some people from really attacking these. But, just by getting on the phone and making the phone calls, that's 90% of the battle right there is just doing it. And I think if you can go in there with a script that you're comfortable with and that, and that you can kind of internalize and just have that kind of organic conversation, it's easier to make the calls, and as long as the calls get done, you're eventually going to get listings.
Well, Patrick, as the manager of this, and again, I would agree with that. I think, look, I think whatever the lead source is, and yesterday we had a really great mastermind. So those of you mastermind members that didn't hear it, you should go back and listen to that one for sure. We had a really good mastermind where we're trying to put together the franchise booklet, right? The checklist, as it were. And as we went down there, we started to think about these agents, and Lee was doing a good job, and I forget who else was going back and forth with him about, well, what if this person were brand new? Would this be the kind of stuff that we need to talk to them about, teach them how to handle the situation? And so I think their context has to be considered better by the management and the ownership of these teams and companies. So I'm with you. So what, as the manager, as the general manager for Cantu Group, what is your expectation and hope so that you can go back up ladder to Paul and say, look, I think Jonathan did a really good job achieving what? What do you want out of that? By the way, let me state the obvious first. You want them to actually make the phone calls first, right? So we have a big team in Ottawa. Steve and Tarek and Sarah, we were on together in their second orientation call, and their biggest challenge, they actually run a boiler room call. I was going to say night, but it's actually during the day, where the boiler room concept is that it's just all about that call, and you're all about driving there, and you're all about getting it done. I think that's check the box number one. You have to do the work. And I like that you said that if we can just get people to feel comfortable, I like the fact that you said, then they're more likely to just make the call. And then you said something subsequently beyond that. Eventually, you're going to get listings. To pursue them, eventually you are indeed going to get listings. There's no doubt about it. That makes sense? Is that what you said, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool.
No, that's 100% of what I'm saying, too. And so, what I want for Jonathan is to get listings.
Right.
Because as I see it, it's really a win-win on a number of levels because, Jonathan will have that success, and I want all my agents to be really successful. And that helps the office, continue to move forward.
Right.
And plus, I want the other agents with Cantu Group to see Jonathan having that success and think, you know what, maybe Jonathan's making these calls sound really easy. Maybe I can jump in and make some of these calls myself and generate my own listings.
Cool.
And I wanted to kind of just sort of catch on like wildfire and have all my guys just spending, I don't know, an hour a day, 2 hours a day, even 30 minutes a day, just dialing some expireds and just getting in the habit of having that kind of a conversation.
Yeah.
Or you just, hey, are you looking to get your house back on the market sometime?
And Patrick, you know what I think that leads to? But we have to do things that make us uncomfortable in the beginning to get comfortable. I mean, it's the perception of the ogre on the other end of the line. I mean, last week we played some, conversations. I'll dig them up again here. So David is in the hot seat, with me here while we're training, so we don't mind doing it live. And as we listened to some of his calls last week, what happened was we just sort of threw him to the wolves of expireds in New England, where nobody's easy, right? Where you can sit there and say, yikes, the poor guy, he went out there, but he didn't have context. So now that we give him context, let's listen to a call that was a little bit better, because I think you're going to hear, Patrick, in this recording, you're going to hear that now he has context, and when he opens up, it's more clear, and now he's able to have that success, right? So let's listen.
Hello?
Hi, good morning. Is Mr. Stephen Malaro there?
This is.
Hi, Stephen. Good morning. This is David from the Griffin Realty, and the reason I'm calling you now is to thank you for using our domain, the Griffin Home Search. And I just wanted to ask you if you're getting all of the information that you need with
I'm
your
getting
home
them,
search.
but it's, I guess, the wrong area got put in. We're looking more towards Brewster, Orleans.
Brewster and Orleans. All right. Would you want us to maybe send you some recommendations based on your home search?
Sure.
All right. Let me just confirm your email. That's malaro4@optonline.net. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, and if I may just ask you, Stephen, just very quickly, how soon are you looking, on making a decision with regards to your home search?
If we find something we like.
Oh, really?
I mean, no rush.
All right. Okay, well, at least I have your preferences here, but is there anything that you'd like to add, so that I could, streamline your search some more?
No, not really, no.
Okay, well, I'll talk to my agent over there, and, we'll come up with something nice for you, all right?
Okay.
All right, if there's anything else, thank you so much, and have a great Friday. Goodbye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, good. So David, come in here and critique yourself on that one. You start, and then Patrick, as a manager, you come in here. Let's critique it. Let's talk about what went right, what didn't go right, could be better. Let's go through it. By the way, guys, hang on before you answer that. There was a couple of really loud microphones. The way to keep this call live in open mics is just hit *6 on your phone, and *7 unmutes it, okay? So I got a couple, I don't know who's mic in San Bernardino, but it's super hot there. So, David, are you out there? I didn't mute your mic, did I, by accident?
No, I'm here.
Okay. All right, so you critique yourself first when you listen to that live now.
Okay. Well, the big difference with this call, versus the ones that I had before is, again, as you said, context. So this guy, I was able to look him up online. I see that he's from New York. He's very active with his home search. So, okay, I just decided to call him. And, again, knowing that this guy is from New York and they're a bit edgy there, compared to other places, I just decided, okay, I'll get in there in the first 10, 15 seconds. And, I made it as, how do you say this, as unsales call-like as possible.
Good.
And I just, really went there and tried to help him. Okay, I wasn't really pushing him anything. I was merely, okay, if I can recommend homes for you. And he said, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, see, I thought that was unique.
That's the icebreaker I was looking for.
Yeah. I'd never really heard anybody say that on a call, and I want to tell you how good the instinct was to say that. One of the things that we miss, especially, and this is the context here, is this is an internet buyer lead that has come in through Google pay-per-click, and I don't know whether he was on Market Leader or Real Geeks. Which one of our sites was he on? Do you know?
Real Geeks. Okay,
good. So here's somebody that's using one of our technologies. David takes a look. He takes a beat. And again, we're not looking for speed here yet on our team. Eventually, it will be the volume of calls like a boiler room where you're plowing through them. But until there's a comfortable way to crack the code, and again, the Northeast is not the easiest place to crack the code. People are short with you. They blow you off, whatever the case may be, right? So I think what's important to understand that he does really well here is he really takes that concierge beat to say, number one, here's the context. And again, he's a rookie at this, brand new. halfway across the world, right? Brand new. Let's keep this in mind. And brand new. We've asked him to join us because he has a hospitality background. I said that before. I'll say it again. And that's all I wanted. I wanted him to sound that way, concierge, and that's just what he sounded like. So when you go through this and you hear that, would you like us to make some recommendations? I like that a lot. And I think everybody should have picked up on that, or will pick up on it, that I highlight it. Why? He's making a suggestion that he can be proactive. Would you like the newspaper at your door in the morning with fresh squeezed orange juice, says the concierge desk at the hotel? Yes, that'd be nice. See, it was hard to say no to that. You couldn't say no to that. It was a suggestion of me going further. And oh, by the way, while I have you, when do you think you would have something? Now, keep going and critiquing yourself, because I have some thoughts there. And Patrick, I want you ready to jump in on this too. So try to keep in mind what just happened. And I can play it again, Patrick, if you want afterwards. But go ahead, David, give me a little bit more of a critique on what you did.
Okay, so I, from the tone of his voice, he sounded like, okay, he's interested, but not, not as warm or not as hot, I would say. So I didn't want to drag it on any further, and probably get on his bad side. So I just wanted to get that important question that, we really need, which is his timing. And I just asked it as casually, and, I wanted to sound like I wasn't there to waste his time. So I just asked him, okay, and I'll make this quick. How soon do you think he'll be making a move? And he was very upfront with it.
Right.
He said, when we find the right home, that's it.
Right. Okay, good. All right, good. Stop. What about that moment?
Sorry.
What about that moment right there? What about that moment? What did that tell you? What does that mean? What's next?
Well, what's next? Well, for me, and this was a question I was asking you via Skype earlier. I think there is an opportunity here for me to follow up with him, in maybe a week's time, or at most 2 weeks, right after I send him, my recommendations. So it's more of, for me, laying the basis. Okay, I know what he wants. I'll come up with, some recommendations for him. And then after a week or 2 weeks, I'll call him up again. And it will probably be better this time around.
Okay.
So that's how I see it.
Cool. Patrick, come on in here. Manage this.
Yeah.
You manage this.
Okay, well, I thought, again, the tone of voice is great. That was a really good conversation. The guy was really nice too, which is, good to hear. One pointer, you used the word, you visited our domain. I would say website instead of domain. That's just one thing I wrote down. But overall,
Okay.
I would go a little bit more aggressively towards somebody like this, because when he says, I will make a move when I find the right house, that's basically him saying, I'm ready to make a move right now. So what I would do in those situations would say, okay, great. Let me send you a list of homes today that match the search criteria that we just talked about. Send me back some homes that look like they could work for you, and let's set up a time to go tour a few houses. Does that sound okay? Because the guy seems so agreeable. I think that might have actually worked.
Hey, Patrick, can I jump in?
Yeah, sure, Paul.
Go ahead.
I think Patrick's completely on point. I'd even go one step more aggressive, which would be exactly what Patrick said, which was, let me send you a list of homes today that match your exact criteria, and go ahead and email me back those listing numbers that, you'd like to go see, and what time this week actually works. Do you have any time Friday, or do you prefer the weekend? Let's block it out right now so we can tour you through a few homes. So I know if we take you through 2 or 3 homes, we're definitely going to get a better idea of what's going to work for you, and we'll be able to find your place right away. How's that sound? What works best?
All right, well,
Thursday, Friday, or this weekend?
All right, well, a couple things. Number one, the guy's in New York, so that wouldn't work here. Because yeah. See, that's the that's okay. No, all good. Let's stay with this, because let's do it for everybody. If he is local, and you're expert at this goes back to the beginning of the call, right, Patrick? There's Paul. There's Danny. There's somebody that can sense that, because I'll come in here with my thoughts about being aggressive too, what I would have done in that moment. But there's Paul sitting in Seattle knowing that these people are close, and he heard a buy sign, didn't you, Paul? That was a buy sign. Somebody was saying that this is a buy sign, because that guy's timing, David, is right now, he says, if they find what they like. And the problem is, we actually have a problem here. The problem is we're not sending him the right areas. So you skipped over the problem without necessarily resolving it. So let's go back. The boys have had some good critiques here. Number one, the verbiage is website, not domain. You got away with it because it's fine, but thank you for visiting our website is just something that I understand more than our domain. That doesn't make sense to me as a consumer. He's smart enough to get it, but you don't really, because you quickly talked about visiting, looking at homes. So that was good. You made the context very clear to the guy. But then when you moved on to the next piece of it, well, let me fix that. So are you telling me, and again, you and I went over the Google Maps. So one of the things would be not just to focus on where he's from, it's where he's trying to go to in our geography. So when you look at Brewster and Orleans, you need to know those towns. And we walk through that on Google Maps. So before you make those calls, you sit still, you take a look at the map and say, okay, you have the whole Cape Cod map open. You know what he's getting now. You can see the criteria, but we're sending him what he doesn't want. He's already made a refinement. That's why intuitively, these guys are recognizing there's an opportunity here because what they're hearing is specificity. They're hearing that this person has already made some level of decision to bring it from Cape Cod to two very particular towns. And ironically, in those particular towns, Brewster and Orleans, depending on what price range he's in, he's probably super narrow. So the first beat here is to say, oh, okay, so you only want to see the town of Orleans and Brewster. Is that correct? And let me just double check your criteria here. You only want to see what price range. So if I start off with the towns and the price range, I've helped add value to fixing the problem he's just stated. He stated there's a problem. Now, after that, it would be good to say, look, what I'll do is right now, I'll go in and do a fresh search in the multiple listing service of those types of properties that are available, and I'll send you a list. You'll keep getting the updates, but I'll send you a list right now. And if you want to go deeper with the information, I would say I'll also send you a list of properties or this list will include properties that sold in that price range as well. So now, here are my 3 beats. Number 1, thanks for using it. Is it working? No, actually, I'm getting the wrong stuff. Oh, let me fix that for you. What would you like it to be? This. Great. And is this the right price range? And is this the right email? You did that well. You went back and you got his email correctly. You verified the information, but you skipped over the criteria to make sure that was right because that's our service. That's the service that we pay you to deliver to him is exactly that moment. That was perfect. That moment arrived. The job is to refine the criteria and then go, like Paul was saying, and Patrick, both of them were saying, go above and beyond. But there are beats. Let me do this. So let me get this right. You're in New York, right? Let me just verify that. You want to move to Orleans and Brewster. How often do you come to the Cape? Are you here now? Do you rent now? So what you did was you had such a good moment that you actually got nervous and bailed out towards the end of the call. It was going just fine, but you can hear the pace increase and you bailed out at the end too quickly. Because now what you've left, you could still fix it. Because what you could do is do what I'm saying to do now. Now you go in, refine the criteria, send him that list that's specialized just for him, and now you have a reason to call back and get the rest of the information. Hey, it's me again. I just want to let you know that I sent you that list. I want to verify that you got it. I did a special search for you, made some property recommendations based on the price range I had. I just want to make sure I had the price range right and this. Hey, by the way, do you visit the Cape frequently? Would you be able to see things or would you like us to preview them? And by the way, you don't have to say, we'll talk to an agent. You work directly with me, okay? So you can be much more specific because you started to sound like you might be part of some outsourced company rather than be part of the Griffin Realty Group. And I think that matters. I think it matters. So look at what I could do is I could have Danny preview some of these if you like, right? You have to start to make that attachment that this is part of a team effort to get this guy what he wants. That make sense?
Yes, definitely.
All right, Patrick, Paul, questions, thoughts there?
No, I think that's a great way of wrapping that up. I mean, overall great call. But, I think it's pretty rare to come across somebody, who says, I'll make a move when I find the right house. I mean, that should be the kind of the dog whistle that goes off. You go, okay, here we go. This guy's ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, that's red alert.
Let's treat him, differently than we would pretty much anybody else, because he's basically saying, I really would like to buy a house. Plus, I liked the comment you made earlier, Danny, about how specific he was about where he wants to move. That's somebody who has definitely been looking at places online and has refined his own search criteria down to what he really wants. That's a motivated buyer.
For sure. There's no doubt that's a motivated buyer. No doubt about it. All the call signs were there, but you did an excellent job for somebody that has not done that before, because what I like is the footprint that you left was good. But you see, if you go back and listen very closely, you have them in the beginning, but you sort of lose them in the end. And it's because you're rushing. You're just rushing, so you're losing them in the other end. The call, let's go back and listen to that. I want everybody to hear it now that we've critiqued it. I want you to hear when you start to rush and you miss the opportunity, okay? The opportunity just to go deeper, that's all I mean. So here we go.
Hello?
Hi, good morning. Is Mr. Stephen Malaro there?
This is.
Hi, Stephen. Good morning. This is David from the Griffin Realty, and the reason I'm calling you now is to thank you for using our domain, the Griffin Home Search. And I just wanted to ask you if you're getting all of the information that you need with
I'm
your
getting
home
them,
search.
but it's, I guess, the wrong area got put in. We're looking more towards Brewster, Orleans.
Brewster and Orleans. All right. Would you want us to maybe send you some recommendations basing on your home search?
Sure.
All right. Let me just confirm your email. That's malaro4@optonline.net. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And if I may just ask you, Stephen, just very quickly, how soon are you looking, on making a decision with regards to your home search?
If we find something we like.
Oh, really?
I mean, no rush.
All right.
If I find something.
Okay, well, at least I have your preferences here, but is there anything that you'd like to add, so that I could, streamline your search some more?
No, not really. No.
Okay, well, I'll talk to my agent over there and, we'll come up with something nice for you, all right?
Okay.
All right, if there's anything else, thank you so much and have a great Friday. Goodbye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you're super rushed, especially at the very end, right? It's almost like you're rushing. You're really rushing off because you're losing them. You can hear it. You're losing them because when you say the criteria that you're asking, he's starting to feel like, well, who am I talking to? He's thinking about it. You had him at the the reason he reacts to you positively. It's a beautiful introduction. It's super polite. Right? I don't know if you have to say, if Mr. Stephen Malaro is there, unless that's, I know how formal sometimes in the Philippines it can be. I know that oftentimes people refer each other to as sir. I think you have to get that cultural gap closed a little bit here too. We don't call each other by the entire formal names. And you could just say, hi, is Stephen Malaro home, please? Or is Stephen home, please? So, you can be polite, and you can even chunk it all the way down to their first name, because then it becomes more familiar. If you formalize it too much, there tends to be a little bit more of a distance, but I don't want to mess with that too much because it was effective. And effective is what matters. I'm with Patrick on that next beat about domain. The language matters. It's a website. But then you got into this criteria part of it, and you were there. And you would say, oh, great, so let me fix that then. Let me fix that for you. That's a service line. It sounds like it got set up incorrectly. But now it almost sounds like towards the latter part, he feels like you're not hearing him. And so it's like, would you like other criteria? Well, of course he would. But we skipped over the other piece of it. We missed talking to him about the big one. So if you skip over the big one about the towns are wrong, and now you're asking generically, what else would you like? He's like, I don't know. I got to go. Right? Because you lost him in that moment. It's nothing you did wrong. You can just hear it in his tone. He starts to drift away. You're still making, all of your calls have been extremely polite. and well received, and these people really like them. But the problem is with anybody that goes too long, and I think that's what Patrick was saying about Jonathan, and I don't know if Jonathan joined us. It's too bad he didn't. I really wanted to pick away at him. But the key there is that less is more, but that doesn't mean rushed, right? Patrick, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Patrick?
Sorry, I had to mute myself. I'm back.
That's okay.
Listening to the call again, it's really interesting. I mean, David, he was right. I think David had him right there.
Yep.
When he, at the beginning half of the call, especially when he said, okay, well, let me get you, you actually did say, let me get you a list of recommendations. So instead of going into, the rest of that second half of the call, and just go into, okay, well, how about we send you a list of recommendations? The other guy says, okay, great. Okay, pick out the ones that look the most interesting to you, and, we'd be very happy to tour you through some homes. And then maybe because he lives in New York, hey, by the way, when are you planning on visiting our area anytime soon, so we can set up a time to show you some houses? And then you can almost wrap the call up right there, because it was, I think, on the other guy's end of things, I feel like he was feeling like it was going a little bit long. Maybe wrap it up a little bit more quickly by just going for, let us know which houses you want to go look at, and just see when he's, and then you can just set up a follow-up call task for yourself for, like a week before he says he's coming to your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, let's move off of this. Good job. Outside sales. I want a challenge. Somebody give me an outside sales challenge. Patrick, if nobody speaks up, you could stay in the hot seat with me. But I need some outside challenges here. Outside sales. Come on, guys. If you've been invited on here by a team leader, you need to participate. It is not a sit in the bleachers moment. So let's go. Jump on here with me. I need an outside.
Hey, Danny, it's
Hey,
Lisa.
Lisa, you're my go-to, Lisa. You've become my go-to gal. I love it.
Yes, I'll come on. I'll jump on if nobody else is gonna.
You got it.
So yeah, I had an issue come up this week that was really frustrating for me. So I got a listing,
Mm-hmm.
and she had some little fix-it jobs around the house. And I suggested 3 different handyman, and I let her know that the guy that I would normally use wasn't available, but that I had found her 3 other people.
Okay.
And so she ended up using one of them, and it turned into an absolute nightmare situation where he didn't do a good job the first time, but went above and beyond to repair it.
Yeah.
And fixed the problem, but then they got into apparently some sort of screaming match. And I got called into the middle of it because she was refusing to pay for half because he hadn't done half of the work.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to calm the whole situation down, which I thought I did okay as far as that goes.
Right.
But then the whole thing backfired because, as you know, if you recommend somebody
Right.
and they don't do a good job,
Right.
they're going to hold it against you.
No doubt.
And so for me, it was just a frustrating situation because I was trying to be helpful by saying, here's 3 different people you can pick. She just happened to pick the one who did a bad job, and I had never worked with any of these 3 before, so I didn't know them, and maybe I wasn't clear enough on that with her.
Yeah. Yeah, well, for sure. First of all, let's stop right there. Don't ever recommend somebody that you're not familiar with, because you're right, Lisa. It's absolutely our reputation. And we are, we're the orchestra leader of this whole production. And that's a huge endeavor. I don't think people appreciate how complicated the real estate agent's job really is. And I say people meaning the consumer. They don't understand that we are, again, I've said this before. What is the default for us? It is to be the most resourceful party to this whole transaction that we can be, right? So when you, hey guys, we have live mics there. Thanks. So what you're doing is you're being the orchestra leader for all of this, and so don't ever make a recommendation when you're not certain that you're probably 90% sure of what's going to happen. I did the same thing recently, okay? Made the same mistake. In a more complicated recommendation situation, where I needed to recommend somebody who had to go through a pre-approval process with FHA, et cetera, right? A contractor. He was unable to meet the obligation that I had put him into. It's not his fault. It's mine, because it wasn't a fully vetted situation. I chose to bring in a new relationship at the wrong time. So I'll take full responsibility for that. And what it did was postponed us 30 days or so. Maybe not that long, but it's been a real pain in the neck. And we'll fix it because we had people to back it up. But I did the same thing, so don't feel bad. It happens. So for both of us, you and I in the same boat together, you really have to go way above and beyond that says, look, unfortunately, these things need to get done. So we have one of two things. We can postpone when we begin this, or you can wait for my guy. Or I can talk to Paul and we can get yet somebody he knows. But don't ever make a blind recommendation as quote unquote a favor. Let's say you have a friend who says, oh, I got a guy. And no, there are no layers between us and certainty as the resource giver. That makes sense?
Yeah. For me, it's a little trickier because I'm new to the area, so
Sure.
I literally don't know anybody.
Sure.
And so my guy was technically Paul's guy,
Yeah.
who wasn't available.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think in the future I will just explain to them, look, this needs to get done.
Sure.
If you want to go on and Google search and Yelp search or whatever, pick your own people out to get it done versus me trying to recommend anything.
Well, that's a tough, and that's a tough, almost an overreaction, and I get it. Because it's like, oh, I'm not going there again. Well, you have to go there again because that's really our job. We are problem solvers. And especially with listings, most of the time that listing needs somebody, something. And not everybody does a good job. Now, over the years, 99% of my contractors are phenomenal. In fact, one of my clients, if you go to thegriffin.co and you look at Willow Street, that house was completely transformed in 30 days. Why? I have a completely reliable and honest team, from AC guys to plumbers to painters to landscapers. An incredible team. But I also had an incredibly good seller who understood it and worked through it swiftly. So I have to be that person because that's my job, I think. And that's what makes us unique. So I would say that, where did Plan B guy come from since Plan A guy couldn't make it? So Paul's guy comes in, but he can't make it there because he's away or whatever the case is. Where'd Plan B guy come from?
I literally just got online and looked at ratings of 3 local contractors that
there you
come
go.
in and do
there,
the repair.
There you go. So what didn't work for you, your default, Lisa, reaction was, I'm just going to tell them to go do that themselves. Well, all of this is hurt. Go ahead. Come on.
I didn't mean to say, like, for future, I'm not going to tell people that they need to get work done.
Sure.
I'm just not going to say that I am referring somebody to them.
I don't agree. I don't agree. I think it's a mistake. I don't agree. I think you want to get firmed up with a couple people in each category that you start to know. And I definitely don't agree. Because what if
Well, that's my goal, but
Sure.
being new to the area and not having worked with people, that takes years of working with people and getting to know and building a relationship, which I don't have that right now. So until I'm 100% comfortable, or say if Paul's guy is available, that I could use him,
I would
I don't feel comfortable doing that again.
I would absolutely go to the latter. You need to. The reason why you joined Paul is because he has been around a long time. He has guys. And the minute his guy wasn't available, I'll ask you a question. Did you go back to him and ask him for Plan B?
No, I thought I would just be proactive and figure that out on my own, which backfired.
There you go. I appreciate that. But now you're reacting to that mistake in a way that I don't recommend. What I would do is I would go download this with Paul and say, let's go over this a little bit. Danny and I were talking about this today, that when I came to you for this guy and he wasn't available, I went out there and look, look, Lisa, we all want to stand on our own 2 feet. We're all proud. We all want to be aggressive, and we want to be the problem solver. And then all of a sudden we get our teeth knocked out and we get upset. And our reaction to it is, well, I'm not doing that again until I'm 100% certain. See, those are emotional reactions we have to a failed moment. It's interesting. I was thinking about this today. If there's weaknesses that I would expose to you all that I learned over the years that I had and still have, is always an overly emotional reaction to something. You can't control your emotions. When something happens, you react, oh my gosh, I can't believe this knucklehead went over there and got a fight with this lady. That's an emotional reaction. But it's better to have that in a private space, take what I call a beat, breathe, think about it, and think about, number one, how could I have done it differently? Number two, well, actually, in this order, the other way around. How do I make it right? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. This guy was the backup plan. It went sideways. Let me get in here. You stop getting into it with this guy. Let me get into it for you on your behalf. Let me go get this guy under control. Right? You gotta be the superhero, Lisa. You gotta step in between your client and the bad situation and be a resource to make it right. Right? And a lot of us panic and run, or we're just like, oh gosh, whatever. You have to run right into that hoop of fire, get it under control while you're controlling your own emotions. That is outside sales number one lesson. Emotional control for us. And I don't always have it because, again, you can't control your emotions when they well up that quickly. You can't. You can't. So it's easy in that beat when some client or some contractor sends you some scathing email or a cryptic text or says something nasty. The first thing we do is we get upset or mad. We have these negative emotional reactions. It's best to take a beat, calm it down, and be the person that resolves the situation. So the critique here is you should have immediately gone to Paul and said, do you have a plan B? Because that's why you joined Paul. Right? Paul's a stud. He's the real deal. Paul is the real deal in Birmingham, Michigan. This is a guy that kills it. And he has had to solve all the same problems that you're trying to solve. So plan A is only the warm-up act for Paul Mihalowicz, right? That's your broker. Go to him. Lay it off on him. That's why we choose these brokerages. That's why people choose to work with me, because I'm that resource, right? Make sense?
Yeah.
And because you'll never get to 100% certain, neither will I. Sometimes even the guys I rely on, they can't do it, or something goes wrong, they got sick. It's always a constant, deal where we have to, fix a problem. And in this case, nothing you did wrong. It's just that I like what you did trying to be proactive. You know what? I didn't want to bother Paul. I wanted to be resourceful. Good. That was good. I like it. Don't stop being that person. Don't stop. It's just that go back to what would have been a better logical decision. We don't need bravado and pride to say, well, that didn't work out. I'll fix it all by myself. I get it, and I appreciate it. And I think it's a good quality that you have. But logically speaking, if you could go back and do it again, I bet you'd take my advice and go back to Paul and say, what do I do now? What's plan B? This guy's not available. And last time I went to the internet, or I send her. It could be even worse if you send her to the internet. Who knows who she could have gotten? Who knows what they would have said? Who knows if they were affiliated with another agent that undermined you? There's so many things that could go awry when you throw them back out to the wolves, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, did you damage the relationship? Did she blame you for this?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I was able to talk to her daughter throughout it, and her daughter seems to be a lot more level-headed than her.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize there was as big of a problem as there was when I was getting in the middle and trying to calm both sides down, which everybody got calmed down, but then I get an email from her saying that she no longer wants to list with me.
There you go.
Based on the fact that I would only remind her of what happened with this guy.
Okay. So what happened next?
Well, I turned it over to Paul and said, if you can resurrect this deal,
Good.
see what you can do.
Good.
So, at best, maybe he can take over that listing, and we can at least still keep her around.
Good.
But yeah, he's just trying to get a hold of her right now, and she's not returning any calls.
Good. Well, first of all, do you have a listing contract?
Yes.
Okay. For how long?
For a year.
Okay. Well, if you don't want her to go anywhere, she's not. So what I would say is that here we go again, defer to Paul. He's the broker owner. And I would get in that house and I would go face to face and say, look, we have a year's contract, so we need to sit down and talk about it, right? Let's get in here and talk about it. So right now,
that's what I would like to do is kind of just, go talk to her and try to find out exactly why she's mad at me for that.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that I was just trying to help her.
Yeah.
And I have no control over what he did, and what he did was very unprofessional and unacceptable.
Well, what happened? What happened? Tell me what happened. Let's be specific. What was the recommendation for fix up, and what happened? Because I think everybody should be leaning. Hold on. Everybody should be really leaning in on this scenario, because this is sales in real estate are all about this kind of a moment where emotions are out of control. People get fired up. I had 2 home inspections where, we have to deal with mice that really freaked a couple of people out. We have to deal with termites that bothered some other people. And these are legitimate things. And these are emotional moments. And you need to go in there and grab these things by the lapels and be the leader. So I want to keep digging into this. And we're not going to just go away. We're not just going to stop a contract. Okay, we're not. We're going to come and sit down with you. So when you're ready to sit down and talk to us, now, of course, unless she's just really whacked out emotionally, then maybe you have to start with the daughter. I don't know how old the daughter is, what the relationship is. You need to go face to face with the daughter first, right? If she's a go-between between you and this emotional gal, then you need to get there. But this guy really got her upset, right? And so tell me the specifics of what went wrong in this contract. You told her to fix what?
So it was really minor stuff. Like, she had a ton of nail holes all over the wall that was excessive, that I thought looked bad.
Yep.
And also really high ceilings, like 20-foot ceilings with these hideous 80s curtains on it.
Yep.
So I had just suggested, if you have somebody come in, fix all the nail holes, they could pull the curtains down. There were some stairs leading down into the basement that just, again, a quick touch-up of paint. And in my mind, I've done remodels and helped flip houses and things like that. I understand how simple of a project this is for me or for a contractor who does even halfway decent work. So I did not see this as like a major, like, gut job or, something big that had to be fixed.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be okay to kind of go out and just grab any old painter who had good ratings that, was referred, I guess, by the online society.
Yeah.
So that's what was my intention. And then, like I said, he didn't do a good job at the beginning.
Yeah.
But then he offered to come back in and paint the entire wall because the paint color didn't match was the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Because she went out and bought new paint. And as you know, when you buy new gallons of paint, they're not going to match with the existing paint that's on the wall.
Yeah.
But he didn't explain that to her.
Yeah.
So he ended up painting all the walls for her. And apparently that looked good, but she had a whole other to-do list, and he had only gotten halfway through that list. And so she, because of this first issue, she didn't want him to finish the rest of the work. And he wanted her to pay her for all of it. And then they got into this screaming match on the front yard in front of neighbors and everybody else.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So enough of this scenario. It's no good. She was emotional. He was no good with customer service. You made a blind recommendation. So we live and learn. We move on. But you need to get in that house and go in and try to make it right. So have you spoken to Paul about it?
Yeah, he just said, well, let me try to call her. So he's left a couple of messages, and she hasn't returned his calls.
Okay. Did you call the daughter?
I don't have her number just specifically. She had happened to answer her mom's phone when I did call. So, yeah.
Okay. You need to be proactive.
I mean, that would be the ideal thing to talk to her.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Terry. What were you going to say? Go ahead. Was that? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Terry weighed in on that. You sound just like her. So yeah, you have to go talk to her. She's the one that's been your ally. You need to get in there. You need to chat with her and say, look, I mean, I understand she's upset. I made a recommendation that I thought was good. I did the due diligence the best I could for backup. Why am I getting beaten up? I'm happy to make this right. But that I would remind her of this guy. I mean, what does that have to do with me? Other than the fact that I tried to vet the guy, right? I'm here to make it right.
Yeah. Well, and that's how our phone conversation, daughter was mad at me, or that her mom was mad at me because of my recommendation. I had explained to the daughter, look, I referred to 3 different people, just happened to pick the bad apple out of the bunch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that sounds like the best plan is to just go, at least try to meet with the daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you need to go do that, and I'd like to hear the result of this. But this is one of the things that I'd like to conclude the call with here today, and I'd like to see if anybody has any comments about that, Patrick or anybody there. I'm just going to say that this is a very real piece of this business, and if we like again, I want to talk about emotions here. It's an emotional IQ that needs to be developed here. I think the people that are best at this are able to maintain an emotional IQ level that's high, right? That's key. And that's not easy to do, because I'm also reading a book about how you really can't control your emotions, your emotional reaction, where we're scared instantly. We don't even have a minute to get logic and say, well, gee, that was just a shadow. It wasn't really anything more than that. That's an emotional reaction, or we're quick to anger or get upset or whatever the case may be. Somewhere in there, we have to learn how to recognize that there's an emotion welling up and try to take a heartbeat to just let it calm down, because beneath the emotion is the logic, and the logic is controllable. Okay, let me think, breathe. What are we doing here? So the ability in a crisis situation to think clearly, strategically, and come up with something and be rational is everything. But to get defensive is your emotional reaction to it. And I'm not saying you did that, Lisa. I'm saying that this is a very regular thing, to get defensive. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Hey, Danny.
Yes.
Hello?
Hi, go ahead.
Yeah, this is John. I just had something to say. So, yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is absolutely right. The one thing that I would call out that I've been hearing, and I'm sorry, I don't know the lady's name on the phone.
That's Lisa.
Lisa, but what I hear from you, okay, is that, there's this explanation and then there's this but, like you only did this, or, this disconnect on what happened. And I would just offer that, there is an opportunity here. And I think what this person might be wanting to hear is like you really taking responsibility over what happened, right? Yeah, you only sent 3 recommendations. It's just a bad apple or whatever. I would take offense to that. As an appropriate way to talk to this woman, just because that's definitely how I've always taught, and I've realized over time that a lot of people just want to hear you take responsibility for what has happened, and not hear. And they can definitely pick up on those linguistic gymnastics of saying,
sure.
well, or it's not really my fault, or all that.
That's right.
Well, and just to be clear, when I was on the phone with their daughter, I was totally apologetic about that and took responsibility for referring. I was just in the conversation with you guys is where I am adding all of the buts and trying to like really figure out in my head, what's going on. But as far as they're concerned, I mean, I've always done that as far as the business goes. It's better just to say you're sorry.
Yeah. And
keep going forward.
Yeah. Well, that's right. And for sure.
Right. And then
go ahead.
Responsibility and making sure that it's solved. Right. Not another 3 recommendations. Real due diligence, maybe getting someone set up with who actually has lead time that's today or this week, or, just going that extra mile. That's what I would offer.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what everybody that was good was like months booked out. Mm-hmm. So it was impossible to get somebody even within a matter of a couple of weeks.
You think that. You think that. Remember now, you did not go back to Paul. So you think that, and you could have dug in a little bit deeper. So, and I'm not beating you up. I'm just saying, see, be careful of where you're going with that one right there. That's not necessarily true. And if it is true, we don't want to rush it to the wrong guy. That's the lesson we learned here. Say, look, you know what? As much as the nail holes are there and the curtains are there, it looks like all the best people that we trust, unless you know somebody, we've got a short list that we recommend because we've had challenges in the past with getting somebody. So we'll do our best to get somebody. But see, that's... I got to be careful how I say this to you because I love when you participate and I want you to take it with a grain of salt. Don't make that your excuse, right? That's what I'm saying. There was a deeper level of resourcefulness that I want to walk away with this and say the broker, don't ever underestimate the owner of this business. Ever. The team leader, the owner, don't ever underestimate them. Go to them, dig in deeper with them, see how deep their resources are or are not, and what they would do in that case, once you're not sure. I think it's okay to fall forward, but if you're not sure about something where we have to give a third-party recommendation, I would slow that one down and I would be careful of it. And I think the real conclusion here is take a beat always on our... this is tough in sales training because we go aggressively at these things, right? Nobody's wrong here. We're just learning. That's all. Because I do the same thing as an expert in this. Some days I am savant-like in my EQ. Other days I am prehistoric, Lisa, right? I'm a moron, right? So I think emotionally, it's not something that's why I want to be very clear about it. I don't think it's something that we learn to always be right about. Oh, someday my IQ will be perfect. No, you have a bag of tools to recognize when you're not perfect. Because watch, get hungry, get tired, and watch how quickly you lose control to that emotion that you're bringing into the deal. So even if we train on it ad nauseum to bring it to this point where we are in control and say, gee, I just heard what happened. I can't believe it. You should have immediately got in the car, went over there, and made it right? That's the best way to deal with it. Just go attack the issue right away.
Welcome to Verizon Wireless.
That makes sense? Yeah? Do we lose you?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay, cool. Awesome job, everybody. Lisa, you rock. Thanks for bringing it home. Patrick, David, everybody that participated today. That ends our call. Have a fabulous Labor Day weekend if you're in the United States, and enjoy yourself and practice this stuff in the field. It works. Emotional control will help. Take a beat before you go at it with somebody, all right? See you next week. Thank you.
Thanks,
All right, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Everybody online, thank you, too. Thanks for being here.